So when you eat simple carbohydrates, basically what happens is you break them down, okay, and you absorb glucose. Now this glucose goes straight into the liver because through the portal vein, it goes into the liver. Now once it gets into the liver has different functions. And the major function, or one of the major functions of the liver, is to assimilate this glucose that you're taking in and help you break it down to get ATP, which is basically the energy currency of carbohydrates. Okay, so the liver will break this glucose, give you energy, which is ATP. Now, some of this glucose will be sent direct to the muscles. Now, if you're exercising and you have an active lifestyle, this glucose will send to the muscles, the skeletal muscles, so that it aids you in daily functioning and that activity, okay? Now, excess of this glucose is converted to glycogen. Glycogen is stored in the liver because this is the storage form of glucose in the liver. So glycogen is stored in the liver. Some of the glycogen is also sent to the muscles again for storage. So glycogen is also sent in the muscles and stored as glycogen in the muscles. Remember, carrying glucose from even the liver to the muscles goes through your bloodstream. Okay, so once you consume these simple carbohydrates and they're absorbed in the liver and it's broken down to give you energy, that goes to the muscle. But however, remember, some of this glucose to be taken to the muscles and even to the fat cells, because excess of it will be taken to the fat cells. And that is a problem because that yields cholesterol. That cholesterol is the problem. However, that will come later. So we are taking this glucose to the muscles through the bloodstream. And remember, in your bloodstream, we have a specific level, a certain level of glucose that beyond which, if it goes higher, that is high blood glucose. If it goes lower, that is low blood glucose. So low blood glucose is hypoglycemia. High blood glucose is hyperglycemia. Okay? So we have a normal level here of glucose always in your blood. So if you don't eat carbohydrates, the body will break down fat, the body will break down protein to give you glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. So once it gives you that glucose, then the blood level of glucose rises back to the normal level. Okay? So there's always a stable amount of glucose in your system, in your bloodstream. Okay? Now, when you eat carbohydrates, this level rises. Now, once it rises, the body instructs the pancreas to give you insulin. So insulin comes in to basically lower this blood glucose down. Okay? So you've eaten carbohydrates, they have been taken into your bloodstream, blood glucose starts going up. Then the pancreas produces insulin. So this is insulin. That insulin comes to the bloodstream to basically take this glucose out of this bloodstream so that it goes back to normal. Now, what does insulin do? Insulin acts like that dustbin that has a footstep. There's this dustbin that when you step on it opens up. So insulin is the foot that steps on that bin so that it opens up. Now, insulin comes and binds on these receptors on cells. So once it binds on these receptors on muscle cells or even fat cells or even in the liver, it opens up channels, the gates, so that this sugar comes from blood and goes through these gates into the muscle. So that is the function of insulin. And that's the reason why it brings this blood sugar down, because it comes in, steps on the receptors on the cell, and then opens up the channels where glucose flows into the cell. Now, if this glucose is excess all the time you eat carbohydrates, there's so much glucose, that means sometimes, at some point, these cells will get tired. Okay, so once they get tired, they cannot take in more glucose. Once that happens, that is what we call insulin resistance. So the cells are full and they cannot take in more glucose. That is what we call insulin resistance. Now, that aside, so we've taken this glucose into cells, into fat cells, muscle cells, and even the liver, and in blood, it goes down. Remember, insulin is not like metformin. Those who've taken drugs for diabetes know metformin is a euglycemic agent, meaning it only brings blood sugar to a normal level. It cannot take you into low blood sugar. However, insulin, be it the normal insulin, the natural one, or the synthetic one, the injection, it will take your blood sugars into low blood sugar because it is a hypoglycemic agent. So it comes in, takes this glucose lower than the normal level. Once it goes lower than the normal level, then your body starts to crave because it wants more glucose to bring this level up. That's the reason why people who get an injection for insulin might end up into hypoglycemia, and what you're given is maybe a Coca-Cola, the soda, or maybe sweets, okay, to boost your blood levels again. So that's a side effect because it takes you into hypo, and people will experience symptoms of confusion, psychic conditions, okay? People are just crazy. People are sweating, profuse sweating. Those are symptoms of hypoglycemia. You can even go into coma. So the same thing happens to this insulin that is produced by the pancreas. So it comes in, steps up, opens up channels for glucose in muscles, glucose goes into muscles, and in your bloodstream, blood glucose goes down. Now, once your glucose goes down, then your body starts to tell you, hey, I need more glucose because we have now low glucose levels. I need more so that I can raise that level of glucose. And that's the reason why you'll start craving for more carbohydrates.